Okay, so now it's a little later, and our caulking embankments have dried. All right, nice and rubbery. This thing's totally flexible, totally pliable, not hurting that. It's kind of a rubbery material. We've placed the stones that have dried nicely on there. They're not going anywhere. All right, so it's a beautiful material to work with to make ridges and to build up embankments around any piece of terrain or whatnot. So what we're going to do to apply our texture, which you may have seen me do in some other videos if you've ever watched this channel before, is I'm going to apply my texture, my dirt-like texture, using kitty litter and sand. And I like to use two different approaches with these roads. I like the idea that the edges of the roads, the embankments, are going to be kind of a more coarse texture where it's more uneven and kind of dug up. And I want a smoother texture on the roadway to show that it's worn down. So what I'm going to do is, you can use watered down glue. I like Mod Podge. I'm going to go roughly where the ridges are. It's okay if I bleed into my road area a little bit. And get some Mod Podge on there. Alright, applying it generously. Try to avoid the rocks, but if you get a little on the rocks, it's okay too. Alright, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my kitty litter and sand mixture, which is a kind of a coarse combination, and I am going to just apply that to the area where I've just put my Mod Podge on. And what you're going to get is this kind of nice dirt texture like that. Now, normally I would go and do all the ridges first and then do the road, but I'm going to show you the difference between these by doing one section of both right here. So I'm going to apply some Mod Podge all over my road here. And what I want to show you is that I'm actually going to use two different textures. Alright, this time instead of a sand and kitty litter mixture, because I want the road to be differentiated from the ridge, I am going with, I just don't have enough on there yet, I want to get it nice and covered. I'm going with just sand this time. Alright, so I'm going to get some sand. I know I'm off camera here for a second, forgive me. And I'm going to apply it to that area. And let me touch up a couple spots where I didn't get my glue on there good, my Mod Podge on there good. So what you hopefully can see is that this is smoother than the ridge, which is kind of a, you know, these kitty litter bits that make it a little bit more coarse in texture. What's going to happen at the end of the day is that there's going to be a nice differentiation between these two areas. Now in the end, I cover up my ridges with a lot of flocking. But this would conceivably, if you wanted to just leave it, this would differentiate nicely between the ridge and the road. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish texturing this up real quick. Okay, so in the end you can see we've got our nice texture on this road piece. You'll notice a little warpage to it because of the moisture in the sand. Do not worry. Even it'll probably dry flat if you put it on a flat surface to dry, and even if it does warp a little bit, you can kind of just warp it back into shape. I can prove that to you because I have a finished example of this piece using the caulking edging. Okay, now early on I was showing you a spackling based piece. You'll notice it's very different. Really just the only difference is the painting approach. This is the spackling ridges, this is the caulking ridges. But this is a finished caulking piece, so this is what this becomes, but this is all painted up and ready to show you. And you can see I've covered most of the ridges in a static grass, but I want to show you very, very flexible. Right, this matting board, the caulking, very flexible. If I did that with the spackling, I'd get a little cracking, although it does have a little give to it. With the caulking, you've got a nice pliable material. In fact, I mentioned early in the video, some people actually do a method where they use weed matting, like black weed matting that you put outside that weeds can't grow through, and they apply the caulking ridges to the side of the pieces that are cut out, and then they've got a completely flexible road that can even go up hills and so forth. I like something a little more solid, but that is a method that definitely works. I've played with it before. So here's our finished piece. A little bit about the painting of the finished road piece is start with a dark brown base coat. I was in the forums the other day and someone had talked about doing some terrain and they automatically kind of threw a black base coat on it. And there are some terrain makers out there that always believe in you start with a black base coat, almost like you're doing miniatures. Honestly, stay away from that. Make your base coat part of your final color. There's no need to base coat terrain in black if you're going to end up doing other colors. I wanted a dark brown base coat, so I started with dark brown. No need to prime terrain like you would prime a figure. So anyway, the road was in dark brown. In fact, let me show you the colors I used here. I did the road in a dark brown, and then I dry brushed on my first highlight of a medium brown in Apple Barrel craft paints. This is a nutmeg brown, very similar to like a bootstrap leather and P3 paints. And then I highlighted on a country tan, okay, on that same road surface. So we did a dark brown base coat, which would almost be like a battlefield brown if you're thinking P3 paints. This nutmeg brown, medium brown, also like a bootstrap leather for highlighting. My second highlighting was a tan in Apple Barrel Craft Paints. This is country tan. Similar color for P3 would be something like a jackbone. Okay, jackbone would be very similar to that color. Yeah, that would be a pretty close approximation. And then actually with the roads, to make the dirt texture really stand out in the end, I actually highlight with a little white in the end. So I take some white craft paint and I do a light dry brushing on the end of that because I really want that rocky texture, the dirty texture of the road to pop out. So that is how I approach the road. The whole time I'm painting the ridges the same way. I paint up the stones that I've added with a dark gray and then a light gray and then a white highlight just to make them show up a little bit more. In fact, let's zoom in on some of those a little bit, right, just to make those show up a little bit more. And then, of course, in the end, I do my static grass. You could do any color or kind of mixture you like. I like the knock spring grass that I use on just about everything because it matches a lot of my boards. And so this is what the road piece looks like in an end. In the end, you can mass produce these. Hopefully you got a sense from the video of just how fast you can crank these out with the caulking and the dirt texture, and you can paint them up in no time. And yeah, before you know it, you got a gazillion road sections. Don't just make straights, make curves and and crossroads and T-junctions, and yeah, and like in just a couple hours you can whip yourself up enough road to cover your whole 4x4 gaming board. So it is as easy as it looks. Go to it. I hope you make some nice roads, and yeah, that's it. Pretty soon I'll be doing another tutorial on making cobblestone roads, which is almost as easy. So this is Garrison for Iron Kingdoms at War, and this has been the Dirt Road tutorial. Happy wargaming, everybody.